Welcome. This is Lynne Caldwell, who is part of Neighborhood Seminary, currently the interim president, but been involved in it for a number of years. Lynne has been elder in United Methodist Church in the Western North Carolina Conference for quite some time, played almost every role available out in the field in the local church, and is now full-time with Neighborhood Seminary. And so happy to have Lynne, you here today to talk a little bit more about your partnership with Cornelius Corps.
Thank you, Tom. It's a pleasure to be here.
Let's just kind of, start with, how did you find out about Cornelius Corps? How did Neighborhood Seminary and Cornelius Corps even start to come together?
That's a great question. Neighborhood Seminary was engaging in conversations with some folks in the New England Conference of the United Methodist Church, specifically was the Many Waters District. And Karen Munson is district superintendent there. Karen's a longtime friend and colleague of Jim's. And as we were looking for persons who might be a part of our spiritual formation team for a cohort we were going to form there, she recommended Jim. And Jim and I just sort of hit it off at the beginning of our conversations as I learned about his work with Cornelius Corps. So we've been fellow laborers together for about 4 years.
Oh, great. So as you talked to Jim and got to learn more about the work of the ministry, what do they uniquely bring to Neighborhood Seminary in support of your work and your vision?
Jim brings together by the very core values of Cornelius Corps, the intersection between spiritual formation and racial justice as discipleship. And both of those are at the heart of what we do in Neighborhood Seminary. We have spiritual formation is kind of the central nervous system for our work together. We closely integrate theological formation around neighboring in the way of Jesus, missional engagement. Neighboring practices is probably the more contemporary way we're trying to describe that. And spiritual formation at the center of all of that, so that the others are wound together around it. And so, and we also have a deep commitment to anti-racism, and not just to do the talk and to do the educational piece with words, but to try to do the hard work every day as persons of non-color, as white persons, what we would think of as our work in this dismantling of racism. And so Jim's been doing that for such a long time, and looking at that intersection between what does it mean to be spiritually formed and be engaged in racial justice. Can you have one without the other? And you can't. And so that was so much in alignment with where we are. So we moved forward together, and not only having him serve as a spiritual director, but he's taught courses for us, the Color of Compromise course and the course of Remember and Recommit. We have him signed up to teach both of those classes in the spring. One starts in January. You can go to our website, neighborhoodseminary.org, and find the details there and sign up for his class. And we have an early bird discount going on right now if you want to sign up for the class. And Jim is just so well prepared and has such a marvelous way of facilitating those conversations. I will say that I have had a couple persons say, "Why are you having a white guy teach about racial justice?" And what I say to them is that this has been Jim's work for more than 30 years. And who better than someone who's dealing with whiteness and is so committed to speak truth and love and caringly confront the white church, particularly for its complicity in structural racism within the church and beyond. And so his coming to us with these two courses has been particularly instrumental in helping us extend our reach So we're very grateful for that partnership.
That's great. And you're so right. Who better to understand the journey as a white person,
Right.
what the challenges really are. So that's a great answer to that question, which may not seem obvious at the outset.
Right.
So one more thing, I know you didn't prepare for this one, but I'll just ask anyway. As you look into the future and think about where neighborhood seminaries going and what you see from Cornelius Core, can you dream for a second about what it might look like? That's partnership 5 years from now, 10 years from now.
Well, one of the pieces that Jim and I have spoken about before is that persons would come into a longer range, a longer term relationship with engaging their place, their call in God's work around dismantling racism, whether they're BIPOC members of our culture and community, regardless of what their racial ethnic backgrounds are.
Right.
How do we enter this work together? How do we enter it from a place of being spiritually formed, knowing that we cannot do this work without the Spirit's empowerment and help, not just within our individual selves, but absolutely the work has to be done in community. And so we have dreamt a little bit together about two kinds of things. One would be a longer term engagement with persons where there wouldn't be just one course and you're one and done, but a series of modules that would increasingly prepare persons to work together in community. And one of those next steps for that would be a missional group. What Jim thinks of as a missional group, a group that's focused on spiritual formation and spiritual practices together, and around their common call for racial justice and how do they support each other in community and hold each other accountable in spiritual practices.
Wow.
So we've talked about that. We at some great length. I mean, across the last 2 years, and the timing just hasn't been right for trying to launch that. But hopefully that'll be the next step, if not in the fall of 23, sometime early in 24.
Oh, very good. I did not know about that. I'm super excited to hear that. It feels like a multiplication effort at that point that
right
kind of grow organically, sort of through call and all that. That's fascinating. That'd be great.
And bringing persons who have already had a course with Jim, have already had other courses, not just a basic course in diversity, equity, and inclusion, but persons who are continuing to move into deeper and wider spaces in that work, both with their journey inward and their journey outward and their journey together, as Jim would frequently describe that.
He would absolutely say that, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's awesome. Lynne, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your partnership with Cornelius Core, and thanks for your work at the grassroots level, where Christ is active and alive every day through his believers. And so I really just want to encourage you in your work as well.
Thank you so much, Tom.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.